Chapter 9 The Oblivion. As life slipped away from Elsa's body, she could feel oblivion around her. All the bones in her body were broken, and she began to feel numb. A white light covered her eyes before it began to weigh heavily. She smiled for the last time before she accepted death. The last thing she touched felt like a pair of hands. Elsa had lost her way into oblivion. It didn't matter where she went, it was more white space, endless white space. There was nothing but light, and Elsa was getting tired of wandering around and struggling to find something. She wanted to rest and fall asleep. But each time she closed her eyes, she dreamed of yet another white void. There was no end to the circle. There were times when she could hear sounds or sense some movements, but she could neither see nor hear anything in her new white world. Even Ayla seemed to be lost. Ayla wouldn't respond to her, and she was no longer able to shift. Elsa went to great lengths to remind herself why she was there and where she wanted to go. But she couldn't connect with anything or remember anything. There was an emptiness that gnawed at her without killing her. She was feeling exhausted and wanted to lie down. She wanted some sleep. But then she heard noises. She felt like someone was holding her hand and verifying her pulse. There was no one there, though. She yelled and cried, but nothing. Nobody answered her screams. Soon she could feel nothing and again left entirely alone. This time she was more broken than ever. There was nothing to hope for. She sought to see as much as possible. There was nothing at all. Just a giant white vacuum trap. "Help!" exclaimed Elsa as she broke down in tears for the umpteenth time. "She moved her fingers!" screamed Kira. The doctor and a couple of others rushed to see if it was true. They'd been carrying her dead weight for so long now, but she had showed almost no signs of life except for breathing. Noah rescued her when she was on the verge of completely drowning and losing her life in the sea. Every bone in her body was broken when he brought her in. Nobody thought she could survive. But she was still alive, fighting her way to get back to the living. The doctor said that she would never make a full recovery, but most of the wounds had healed already. Turned out it was way too early to heal, even for a werewolf. There are some broken bones that even a werewolf couldn't recover from, but that girl was recovering all too well. She must have been somebody special, and Noah in particular was determined to save her at any cost. "Her vitals have improved. Notify the Alpha," announced the doctor. A wave of happiness swept through the little temporary hut. These were the Opals, a rebel nomadic werewolf pack led by Noah. They had not been recognized by the Werewolves' Council, but many small packs recognized them and accepted their existence for their heroic deeds. They fought against evil and have helped more packs than they can count, but a lot of other packs don't believe in their ways and call them rogues. They were a group of werewolves who were shunned by other packs for the wrong reasons. Noah was not an ordinary leader. He was the alpha of the pack, but he never demanded unnecessary respect. Noah treated everyone as equals. He was fair and balanced. Everyone loved him and looked up to him, but he was a man of few words and many hidden injuries. Not often, but sometimes, it was only Kira with whom he shared his sentiments. "Noah will be happy. Can you tell me when she's going to wake up?" exclaimed Kira. "I'm not sure. She's responding in a very strange way. Her body seems to have recovered enough for her to regain consciousness already. I think there's some kind of mental block. She's preventing herself from waking up due to some trauma," said the doctor. "It could be. Noah said he found her by the cliffside. Do you think she jumped from there?" Kira wondered. I guess she did. And what pushed her to jump prevents her from waking up as well. Moreover, I feel we need to stay a bit longer in a single place, so that we're not always on the move and she gets the rest she needs. That may be one of the reasons she's not waking up. Her fragile body could be getting exhausted and must be draining her life force, the doctor suggested. She was in her mid-40s with a maternal affection for the pack. Everyone respected and listened to her, for most of them were nearly 20 years younger. I will talk to Noah, but as you know, we can't stay here forever, Kira agreed. She was the only one who could get Noah to settle down in one place for a while. Kira immediately mind-linked Noah, and he was on his way. Noah had an interest in finding out more about her. Something about the odd girl fascinated him more than he wanted to accept. Not because she was extremely beautiful, with silver hair and light skin that made her look like the moon goddess herself, but because Noah wanted to know why she was so different. She was a werewolf, which was all he knew, but she was nothing like the others. Noah rushed over to Elsa's side. She seemed far too beautiful to lie down like a corpse. There was not even a single scratch on her perfect skin that could say that she'd had all those injuries some months back. Noah wondered for a second how somebody could recover from all those injuries so quickly. Her wolf had to be very strong to be able to do that. But why hadn't she woken up yet? She looks the same, Noah said with a broken voice. He was getting a little impatient. I know, but she moved her fingers. The doctor said she should stay a bit longer at a place where she could heal. Plus, she may have a mental blockage, and maybe that's why she's not waking up. Kira told him all about it. Noah didn't say a thing. He felt agitated. Noah grabbed Elsa's hand and slid his other hand through her hair. All he whispered was, "Wake up." He'd lost hope and was on the point of getting up when Elsa made a second move that same day. She moved her fingers again, Noah said in an ecstatic voice. That made it real. She was beginning to display signs. Kira also saw it and hugged a currently happy Noah. Her heart filled with joy when she saw that he was happy. Elsa felt several movements again, but this time she wanted to know more about it. She could actually feel like she was touching someone, and not just the feeling of being touched. For some strange reason, for the first time, a memory flashed in her mind. She could remember a feeling of drowning in the endless water when she was pulled by a pair of hands. She wanted to extend her hand to feel something different from the infinite emptiness, but it was over way too quickly, before she heard a faint, "Wake up." She tried to reach the hand, to reach the voice, but there was nothing for her newfound memory to hang on to. She thought about who wanted her to wake up. Was she asleep? Is this all an endless dream? But the vacuum seemed too real, and it was eating away at her. She did everything she could to awaken, but nothing. She was devastated again and fell to her knees, crying. At this point she could experience more gestures, more voices, but she had no way of communicating with any of them. She couldn't reach out to them. That only voice she could connect with was gone. She went around trying to get a hold of something, but nothing. She was about to lose hope again when she could see two big silvery eyes looking at her from afar. It had to be Ayla. Her white fur shone brightly as her body corresponded with the white ground. It was only because of her eyes and nose that Elsa was able to recognize Ayla. Otherwise, she emerged from the background. A pure joy rushed over Elsa as she ran towards Ayla as if her life depended on it. For the first time in such a long time, there were tears of joy. But regardless of how hard she ran, Ayla looked too far. Even though she was getting out of breath, she was determined to join Ayla. She was not going to miss this opportunity. She kept running. It took her forever to reach Ayla. She could see that Ayla was shackled, but she seemed calm. Why are you chained?" She rushed to Ayla and tried to free her from her chains, but they had no locks. She didn't reply to anything. Was she not talking to me? Why? "Ayla, please talk to me. Why are you like this? Why did you leave me?" Elsa wept with anger and anticipation. "How are you, Elsa?" Elsa finally heard Ayla's voice in her head. A wave of joy rushed through her as she closed the distance between them and hugged her in a close embrace. "I feel better now, but I'm tired, Ayla. I want to come out," Elsa complained. "The chains," Ayla answered. Elsa looked at her with bewilderment, for she was not able to understand what Ayla was pointing at. "I'm not able to take them out. You are stronger. Pull them, Ayla. Let's run away from this emptiness," Elsa suggested. "They are the chains you have created, Elsa. You wanted to push away everything. You'd given up hope, and you created this world. You're trapped in your own mind. The chains are your fear. You need to overcome your fears and apprehensions so that we can finally go back," Ayla explained to Elsa. Elsa looked puzzled. What fears? What apprehensions? She was so desperate to get out of that place. How could she be the creator of something so lonely? "I don't get it." Elsa stared anxiously. "Break down your mental boundaries. You created this wall around you. We need to face the world again, the two of us. This time it will not be easy. We will be the fearless badasses that we're meant to be," Ayla suggested, but Elsa was not able to figure this one out. She didn't remember anything. Why would she create such strong walls? That's when a realization dawned upon Ayla. She has no memory of anything other than Ayla. She has distanced herself from every memory. Perhaps they were too painful and harsh. Maybe Ayla had a point. She built that wall to keep her safe from the outside. Maybe this void is a reminder of her empty life. "How do I do that, Ayla? I'm tired of this. I can't imagine anything in the world would be more brutal than this." Elsa tried to look brave. "It could be worse, but it's okay. We both will face it together. Push harder and try to break the shackles. Break your mental blocks. Trust in us. Trust in yourself. You are the child of the moon goddess, dear. She would not create someone weak and give her me as a wolf. We have to get out of this. Start focusing on the memory that made you see me after all this time. From there, go back." Ayla gave a plan while encouraging her. "Okay." Elsa focused on the moment she felt a pair of hands on her, and she already felt a bit better. As she tried to concentrate more, she could feel the drowning experience. Elsa wanted to put an end to it, but Ayla encouraged her to go ahead. The pain in her body only increased because she was able to feel her bones break again. But the grief that followed it was the worst. The pain of heartbreak. And she was finally able to remember Raphael's beautiful face. Bang! She fell to her knees as all the bitter memories hit her like a freight train. She didn't recall any happy memories. For all she cared, Raphael was there with a girl, probably Davinia. Yes, she saw a naked girl oozing with the scent of Raphael after she slept with him. Elsa saw her standing beside Raphael before she fell. Did she want to go back to a world that only brought her suffering? Chapter 10. Beatrice. Elsa looked at Ayla. She was equally broken. She no longer seemed confident, but Elsa wiped her tears. She'd already tried to kill herself and trapped herself in this never-ending void. She ran out of luck in both cases. Those options were already exhausted. The only other option that was left was to fight back, and she would. For her, for Ayla. Hell yes. This time, she would not let anyone trample over her feelings. She would rise like a phoenix from the ashes. Now that she and Ayla were all set and clear, the chains that were binding Ayla shattered along with her wall. At last she could feel Ayla in her, and her heart swelled. She was able to hear all the noises and feel the activities around her, but still she had not managed to get her hands on anything or wake up. She tried to break her dream sequence, but her body felt too depleted.
I have a feeling that the people who saved us are werewolves, but they move around a lot. That may be the reason why your body is exhausted. Let's wait,
Aya reasoned. Elsa didn't want to spend another minute in that oblivion, but she was so exhausted. Days passed by, and Elsa was feeling more distressed. Despite all her efforts, she couldn't get out of the coma. They were constantly moving her, ever since Elsa was more aware of her situation. She was becoming more and more aware of her surroundings, but she didn't feel the presence of that person who was the real reason she got out of her trance.
They move like that for a couple days until they suddenly settle for a couple of months. Let's wait for them to settle down, and then we can recuperate and establish a connection with your physical body.
Ayla tried to persuade a distressed Elsa to come back to her senses. Finally, the day came when they stopped traveling. She could feel it. After a few days, she could feel her strength. This time, she was determined to get out of her coma. She wanted to see the world again.
Are you ready?
Ayla questioned, and Elsa agreed readily. They were desperate to wake up. She could sense a strong presence in the room, but it didn't disturb her. She never felt surpassed by any type of aura or authority. She heard voices hollering that her fingers and hands were moving, so Elsa knew she was doing just fine. She tried to push harder. She finally seemed to get the hang of it and opened her eyes. It was all too bright, somehow brighter than the white world. She closed her eyes to adjust the light. She could hear a woman asking her to attempt to open her eyes slowly. She followed her instructions and it worked. After a while, she could see. She could see several strange faces. They watched her with a smile on their faces. She wasn't sure why, but it felt good to see that these people were happy that she'd recovered from the coma. But was she capable of trusting them? That may be a different story.
Who are you?
Asked the lady in her mid-40s.
I...
Elsa was wondering whether she should tell them who she was. She wasn't sure. Besides, she no longer wanted to be her former self. Her old life was a cursed one. She wanted a new beginning, and to do so, it had to start from scratch.
Can you remember who you are?
Asked the lady. She must have been the doctor.
I am Beatrice. Where am I? I can see that you are werewolves.
Elsa used the first name that came to her mind. It was the name of one of the well-known models of Moonlit City.
You were rescued by Noah and brought to the Opals,
she answered.
Opals?
Elsa raised her eyebrow.
We are a rebel pack. We stand up against evil, but this has nothing to do with us. We need to know about you so we can make arrangements for you to return to your pack. You've been in a coma for the better part of a year. They probably believe you're dead,
Kira said. Elsa thought she was a very pretty blonde girl who seemed to be able to pick up 10 wolves together.
I...
Elsa stammered while trying to come up with a lie.
Are you capable of remembering anything?
The lady doctor asked. Elsa came up with a thought. She made a paler, distressed face and sobbed a bit.
I have no memory of anything other than jumping off a cliff. Maybe bits and pieces, but nothing in particular. Why do I have no memory of anything?
She cried out. Elsa desperately wanted to be taken in by the new pack. It could be her opportunity for a new life. It was clear that they didn't treat her as an abomination, and that they took care of her for almost a year. She wanted to stick around.
Moon Goddess, and we thought she was making too much of a recovery. She lost her memory," exclaimed the lady doctor.
"Well, how do you know you're Beatrice?" This time it was a male werewolf. Elsa could figure out he was an alpha. He had a strong personality and an impending power. Elsa flinched at that. She was not getting any break from the constant questioning to think about her lies. The whole thing was unplanned, and that sudden question caught her off guard.
"I just know, okay? I can't remember a thing other than jumping off the cliff. Why doesn't anyone believe me?"
She cried in an attempt to make her memory loss situation look real.
"Noah, this is not something unusual. Perhaps she just manages to remember her final memories before she hit her head on the rock. Let's give her a little time and see how she does. She needs to rest now. We know she tried to take her own life, and it may be better if she doesn't know why. I think we can make room for her in our pack, only if she wants to," asked the lady doctor.
She was a kind and considerate woman. Elsa felt a little sorry about lying to her, but she needed to put her past behind her, and the only way to do that is if no one knew about it. "Fine. Agatha, treat her well," said Noah. He stared deep into Elsa like he wanted to scan her mind. He had an attractive pair of emerald eyes that looked great with his dark brown hair, but something about him unsettled Elsa. She had to play it safe with him. Noah walked away from the room without saying much. Everyone except Kira and Agatha followed suit. Agatha instructed Kira about some of the medications, and she too took to leave. Elsa was beginning to feel exhausted again, and her eyelids were getting heavy. Elsa was afraid that she would go back to the empty void if she closed her eyes, but she wasn't able to battle against sleep for very long and quickly fell into a deep slumber. Finally, she could sleep peacefully. The following day, Elsa was already able to walk with no support. Everyone was surprised by her quick recovery, and some were starting to think she was a supergirl. With her silver hair and eyes and slender figure, she resembled the goddess of the moon herself. Most members of the pack started a conversation with her and attempted to make friends with her. Kira was very kind to her, and she even allowed Elsa to share her room and her clothes. Elsa was beginning to feel at home. For the first time, people didn't doubt her appearance and were making an effort for her. No one had ever done anything for her, and as they laughed and shared their secrets, she started to get overwhelmed. The whole day passed and the night came, but Elsa hadn't seen Noah. She looked forward to meeting him again. It was nothing romantic like she shared with Raphael. She just wanted to keep her enemy close.
"Kira, why are we staying in this big house on the periphery of the pack border? Are we going to fight them?"
Elsa asked the question she wanted to ask all day. The house smelled of other pack wolves. Also, she could read in some of the conversations that they were in a no-man's land outside the border of a small pack called the Pearl Moon.
"Girl, you are super fast. It was only yesterday that you were lying in bed."
Kira laughed as she took her bedclothes out of the closet. Elsa did not ponder further. She could not, and she should not, interfere with the pack business on the first day. Elsa knew better. She quickly changed into her nightclothes as she was now alone in the room. Elsa was lying in bed, nearly drifting off, when Kira, who was still wearing her old clothes, ran out of the washroom. She was in some kind of rush.
"What happened?"
asked Elsa.
"Patrice, rogues have attacked the Pearl Moon pack, and they're not just any random rogues. They're quicker and more intelligent. They have too much discipline, more like pack members with a strong alpha in charge. So just close the door and lock yourself away. You can't leave this room no matter what. We must help the Pearl Moon pack," Kira informed Elsa as much as she could before locking her up inside the room and closing the door from the outside. Elsa wanted to help. She wanted to make sure the few kids they had were safe. She also wanted to make sure that the wolves who were too weak to put up any fight, whom she'd met earlier that day,
were put to safety. But Kira was too fast. Kira didn't allow Elsa to talk and locked her up from the outside. It was a pretty big house. As far as she knew, these people could be all over the place. She was sure that Noah would have taken care of them, but she couldn't put herself together with the thought, what if someone was not safe, lurking over her mind? Had it been her old life or old pack, she wouldn't have bothered. But Beatrice was different. She wanted to fight back for all those people who showed her love. The hours passed, but nobody returned. Elsa tried to contact Kira and Agatha's phone, but none of them picked up. They were probably too busy. She was starting to get anxious and wanted to break free, but she didn't want to do anything reckless. She was sure the house was secure because she couldn't hear any noises from the outside. But as if that thought had jinxed her, Elsa heard a loud thud. The front door must have been broken. They had an intrusion, which means they were no longer safe inside the house. Elsa started to get worried. Ayla wanted to break loose. Elsa wasn't a trained fighter, but she wasn't weak. Ayla was never properly trained, but she was strong enough to stand up to some petty wolves. At the bottom of her heart, she knew that she had to do something to save the weaker ones. Elsa was circling the room when she overheard another loud noise. Some scream followed it. Probably they'd got some female werewolf who was defenseless. She tried to break the door, but it was too strong. Just after that, she received a message from Kira.
Stay safe. They've infiltrated Pearl Moon and are in large numbers. Many of us are injured. They're on their way to the house. We're staying outside the pack borders. Noah is on his way.
If only she knew that they were already here. Elsa could hear screams coming from the whole house. She wanted to get out of that fucking room. As if her prayers were answered, Elsa heard footsteps approaching her room. She let out a vicious smile. She channeled every emotion. Her mind flooded with memories of years and years of torture and neglect. Her heart broke again when she remembered Raphael's rejection and deception. The only folk that treated her right were the Opals, and she would die happy to keep them safe. Oh boy, she was ready. Chapter 11. The Fight. Thud! The door broke. But what the man saw in front of him was marvelous. In front of him stood a huge white wolf in all her glory. She was so white that it looked as if she was the moon goddess herself. He gasped. He wasn't sure how to react, and Ayla wasn't going to give him another chance. She plunged forward at him, ripping his throat out the next second. Blood was dripping from her mouth and stained her white fur. But did she care? No. She was in killer mode. Everyone that crossed her path met the same fate. Her speed was uncanny, and so was her agility. Trained rogues failed against her power and determination. She was determined to reach the place from where all the wailing sound was coming, and the path was not smooth. It was filled with dingy rogues. Not every move she made was a success, but it was due to lack of training and calculations. By the time she reached her destination, she had several wounds, nothing she couldn't heal later, but her body was covered with blood. Some was hers, and some was other wolves she'd killed or wounded on her path. There were still several of them in tow. Finally, she reached the room where the rogues were keeping everyone hostage. She could smell more rogues. She was beginning to feel tired. She'd never fought so much, but there was no time to rest or to back down yet. She jumped towards the door to break it open. After applying force a few more times, the door finally creaked open. She was beginning to feel exhausted. What she was doing was not a single wolf job, yet she managed somehow. But she was not so sure she could hang on much longer. Hungry wolves were surrounding her from the back as well as new ones from inside the room. The room was full of children and weak, defenseless wolves who couldn't put up a fight against them. She could see they were mortally wounded, and 2 of them were already dead. Her blood boiled. She could feel the anger resurfacing, but her body was starting to give up. She counted on Noah's arrival. He should be here any minute. All that she had to do was hold out for a few more minutes against a few more rogues. She summoned all of her remaining energy, courage, and anger, and dove towards the nearest wolf. She could feel it stab into her shoulders, but she managed to bite him on the neck. She groaned in pain, but managed to hold on to the neck until it was truly dead. That drained a lot out of her. That was when another wolf fired a bullet that missed her. There was something familiar about that she couldn't quite place. She now not only had to dodge the bullets, but also fight the wolves, some in wolf form and others in human form. When her eyes landed upon the man who was firing at her, she was startled. It was the same man who had attacked her in the Red Moon territory while she was trying to avoid Raphael. That's when he fired another bullet, but this time it was aimed at an innocent Opal who was now bleeding profusely. He was crying in pain as the silver mixed with his blood. Ayla was determined to kill him. She moved towards him, but 3 wolves jumped on her and locked her up. She struggled to free herself, but the weakness was kicking in. She managed to hurt one of them, but they were able to break one of her legs. She cried in pain. Elsa wanted to shift back, but it was risky. She also didn't want them to see her human self, so she just kept hoping Noah would show up at any second. As if her prayers were answered, Noah and a few others barged in. Some of them were already in wolf shape. She couldn't recognize everyone, but the presence of Noah filled her with a little courage that she used to free herself from their hold. Noah's sudden entrance had also surprised the wolves, and they were paying less attention to Elsa. The fight was now one-sided. The one who was firing his bullets was almost over, and most of the rogues were tired and panting. A lot of them were heavily wounded, despite their faster healing ability than a common wolf. But before Noah and the others would have attacked them, every wolf surrounded the man who was firing the bullets. It was as if every one of them was willing to protect the man at the cost of their lives. Noah and the Opals put up a vigorous fight, but that rogue managed to escape. Ayla had a broken leg and was too weak to follow him. Something strange happened as soon as he managed to escape the house with the Opals following him. They lost track of him. Every wolf who was held captive or was still fighting but would no way win, swallowed a pill. The next moment, a white substance came out of their mouths and they dropped dead. Elsa immediately shifted to her human form and laid at her previous place. She was barely able to move. She'd only been up and around a couple days now, and again she was badly injured. Noah asked the healthy wolves to help the hurt ones, and he personally carried a wounded Elsa, or rather Beatrice, as he thought, to one of the rooms where she could be treated. Elsa had several queries in her mind. She wanted to ask about how Kira and the Pearl Moon Pack were, but she was beginning to feel very weak. She was afraid to go back into oblivion, but her body was not supporting her. In the arms of Noah, she lost consciousness. This time, Elsa did not take long before waking up. She was glad that she was back in the world of the living. She was badly hurt and still had some wears and tears, although most of her injuries were already healed. Even she was beginning to wonder why she was recovering at such an abnormal rate. It was like those of the rogues. She was faster than them, but they too had an abnormal healing rate. Was she a product of some experiments like everyone claimed? Was she one of those rogues? Were these the rogues who attacked the moonlit city all those years ago? Her mind was flooded with several questions, but she was unsure whom she could ask and how to find out the truth. She cannot possibly go and tell her old life and still be accepted after telling that lie. Moreover, she was happy being Beatrice. While she was engulfed in her thoughts in a hospital room that she had no memory of coming to, Noah entered with a single yellow rose. He gave it to her and sat on the bedside chair. A heavy silence filled the room as both of them were not able to find any words to start the conversation. "How are you?" Kira barged in with a big smile, but she stopped smiling as soon as she saw Noah and the flower. Elsa could see she was taken aback by that. It was evident that she was not expecting something like this. "You're here?" Kira said to Noah in a surprised tone. Yes, and I was leaving. I just came to thank her for standing up for the Opals when no one was around. Noah briefed his purpose for the visit. He immediately turned toward Elsa/Beatrice and spoke. I would be happy if you would accept this flower as a token of friendship. You are most welcome to join the Opals. He didn't wait for Elsa to reply and left the room in a hurry. It was really awkward for all of them, but Kira was the first to recover. Now that it was only the two of them, she was again smiling brightly. She rushed to her new friend Beatrice's bedside and gave her a distant hug. This put a smile on Elsa's face. How are you feeling, Beatrice? Kira asked.
I'm good. Are you all right? Elsa queried. Yes, silly. It seems you're prone to hospital beds.
Kira giggled.
Yes, it seems so, Elsa joined her. Where are we, and how is everyone? Did the Pearl Moon Pack win?
Elsa had too many questions.
We're in the pack hospital of Pearl Moon, so yeah, they won. But a lot of the Opals and their pack members are wounded. Many lost their lives, too. And dear Beatrice, a lot of others would have lost their lives if not for you being the valiant one. Girl, you single-handedly fought those rogues. You are something,
Kira praised her.
No, I did not do that well, or else I wouldn't be here, Elsa giggled. Are you going to accept Noah's proposal? Kira asked in a serious tone. I think so. I have nowhere else to go.
She didn't give it a second thought before answering her. Well, this is what she wanted all along, a place where she was accepted. And Opals felt like home. Who knew she could find a home among travelers? Kira was super excited at that. She clapped her hands and hugged her. It hurt a bit as Elsa's broken hand was still healing, but she was happier than Kira. No one had ever shown her that kind of affection or happiness to be around. She just couldn't understand how her weird appearance meant nothing to these people, while others always thought she was some kind of abomination.
Can I ask you something? Elsa asked Kira. There was something she dreaded to know.
Shoot. She sat in one of the bedside chairs as she picked up an apple and ate it.
Are you and Noah together? I mean, I have no right to intrude, but you two seem to be pretty close.
Elsa did not wish to sound too interfering, but she was curious.
Why would you think that? Kira scoffed. We are close since forever. We were practically raised together, and when Noah walked out of his previous life, I followed him. We're best friends. So, yeah, we are closer than you think,
Kira said with a certainty in her voice that didn't quite reach her eyes. But Elsa was not very good at reading between lines or understanding unsaid emotions. She never had a friend to experience all of that with, so she believed her. Honestly, Kira had been in love with Noah ever since she knew what that feeling was. But Noah treated her like his best friend. He never thought of her romantically, and Kira was too afraid to change anything between them. She was okay continuing to be his friend, rather than profess her love for him and having him reject her. And if he can't know yet, then no one needed to find out.
That explains it. So, did you convince Noah to accept me into the pack? He was apprehensive earlier, asked Elsa.
She was enjoying the little bird talk.
You have ears everywhere. Well, this one is purely his decision. We didn't get any time to speak after yesterday night's incidents. We're all still healing up. The Pearl Moon Pack has been kind enough to help our injured ones, despite them having more casualties. They're really a small pack with little resources.
Kira filled her in with all the details. Not for once she felt like she was a new member. She already felt like she was a part of the Opals, and she was loving this.
If you don't want to answer, you can let me know, but how do you manage the cost of your travel and other things? You're not staying in one place to do something stable.
Elsa had already seen the way people dressed and lived. They were not living a lavish life, but they had money. She was not sure where they got that.
Good question. Some are given by the packs we help. Also, some of us have our own businesses and establishments that don't require a lot of presence. And the weak ones, we find them packs where they can stay and build their forever packs. The Pearl Moon Pack has been kind to accept 20 of them, but mostly it was Noah who manages the funds. He's filthy rich, babe. Why don't you befriend him and ask him to tell you his story?" Kira informed her about some of the background details. The Opals were strange, and so was Noah. That is when Elsa saw that Kira was probably mind-linking to someone, possibly Noah. "Patrice, Noah requested your presence somewhere. The wolf that ran away last night from the house was finally caught. He's being held hostage at the Pearl Moon dungeons, and he's hell-bent on speaking to you," Kira said. "What?" Elsa's fear began to materialize. What if her truth was exposed? And why her?
Chapter 12. The Creature. "You!" The rogue showed his dirty and horrible teeth the minute Elsa entered the room. It was as if he was waiting for her, like he was waiting for her to be in his presence. "Do you know her?" asked Noah on behalf of Elsa, who shuddered when she saw the rogue. He was the same man pulling the trigger that night. The rogue remembered her. She feared it might talk about the encounter at the Red Moon territory. There was good chance the Opals would leave her there or try to trace her past. She couldn't let that happen. "A man can have doubts." He flashed his stinking, gruesome yellow teeth to Noah and Elsa. "Do you know her or not?" This time Noah used his alpha voice to command an answer. Everyone bowed their head in submission, apart from the rogue and Elsa. But it didn't take long for Elsa to catch up. She immediately inclined her head, knowing how these things work. She couldn't take any liberties and risk anyone thinking she was weird. She was no alpha blood. She was just a weird wolf. This rogue had the nerve to laugh at him, seeing that Noah was trying so hard. "You're an alpha?" Noah questioned, unsure of why his voice didn't affect him. But his appearance was so bad that he was unable to accept it. "I shall speak to her alone," he said as he gave a horrendous look at Elsa. "You asked to speak in her presence. I allowed it. But I will not allow that," Noah disagreed. The man neither complained nor countered. He just ceased to speak, and looked at everyone with mocking eyes. Hours went by, but he chose to be silent despite the torture he was being subjected to. It was like that man was made of iron willpower.
"I suppose I should speak to him alone. We need information,"
Elsa tried to reason with Noah one night. At first she wanted to talk with him alone because of her insecurities, but now she was curious to find out more. By then Noah was getting impatient as well. He was helpless and had to put up with it. Once Elsa and the awful man were alone, he couldn't help but look at her as if she were some sort of miracle. That was a little disturbing to her. She felt herself being objectified and uncomfortable, but she had to deal with the devil, and there was no other alternative.
"Who are you?" demanded Elsa.
"It doesn't matter," he said. "But who are you?" he questioned back.
"I don't have any memories from my past,"
Elsa lied. The man laughed at her in her face. He thought it was so funny that he could not control his laugh, no matter how hard he tried.
"You're out of your mind,"
Elsa despised him. "And you're a liar," he ridiculed her.
"What? Why would you say that?"
She looked elsewhere to avoid seeing him directly. "I know that look. You know who I am." He was not in the mood to play any games.
I do not recognize you."
Elsa again tried to lie. "Fine. Let's agree to that." He mocked her again. "Last night you were more savage. Whatever you were holding back, I guess you got past it." He laughed at her again. Elsa looked at him with disbelieving eyes.
"Who are you? I don't think you're an alpha, Elsa asked this time. She was determined to find out more about the rogue.
Alpha? I am a sire. He flashed his teeth bluntly.
Sire? Elsa sounded confused.
It is time. He needs to talk to you. I have to let him in. He prepped Elsa as he broke some pill that he was hiding in his mouth and swallowed it.
Who? Who are you talking about? What did you just take? Elsa asked in fear. Elsa was confused, but the rogue went completely silent after that. His face turned paler. He looked at her like he could see through her, or as if she was not there at all. His gaze was so intense and exasperating that it shook Elsa's core. Suddenly his wrists twisted and she could hear bone-cracking sounds, probably coming from his back, and his eyes became blank as though he were blind. It was completely white. He started shaking badly. It was like he was completely gone, and this creature had taken full control over his body. He looked like a man possessed by some sort of ghost. His veins widened as they popped out and were visible now. Some of his canines even elongated like the wolves. He was shifting, but not like those of wolves. The change was much more brutal than what a wolf had to endure in his first transformation. Elsa couldn't handle the way he went through the whole thing, and most importantly, she couldn't understand why anyone would do that willfully. The man was groaning in pain. He was perfusing badly. Drops of sweat were pouring from his body, and so was Elsa's. He grumbled with pain as his hands turned into something that was in between the hands of a man and a werewolf paw. He had elongated fingers and big nails. He was getting more hairy and voluminous. Soon his feet extended and became something in between that of a man and a wolf. He never turned into a full wolf. Parts and pieces. He was like some kind of weird hybrid, and whatever pill he'd swallowed had set off the transformation. One thing was certain, he was not a human anymore. Finally, when the transformation was over, a weird creature had surfaced. It had no eyes. It had a very weird nose with extended pointy ears. He had hands of humans, but his nails were that of werewolves, long and pointy. A loud growl escaped from his mouth as Elsa stepped back in fear. "Help! Help!" Elsa screamed as she made to run.
"Be rest assured they cannot hear you."
He let out a malicious grin. He was the most sinister and hideous creature she had ever seen in her life. What are you?" Elsa stuttered as this horrible creature resurfaced across her. It was brutal. It was like nothing she'd ever seen or heard of before. She started to walk back. The creature growled as it broke its chains. He was stronger than she originally thought, and clearly the silver didn't affect him. He was taller and broader. As he stood in all his ferociousness, he sniffed Elsa.
"I can smell you. Exquisite.
He slowly moved toward Elsa as she stepped back in fear.
I thought he was lying. Men are always lying, wanting things they cannot have. But he was right. A foolish one, but not a liar. I thought I lost you. He was a coward to have left you there. But here you are. You smell perfect." He sniffed again as he got close to her. Elsa was struck with fear. She was trembling and unable to utter any words. "What are you?" Elsa stuttered more than she could speak. "Something like you,"
he answered as if he knew everything about Elsa, and that's what made her more scared. "I'm nothing like you," Elsa answered back with conviction. She was never going to be something so horrendous and terrible.
"Your delusions will not change who you are. Come to me. We can rule together. You're too powerful for these stupid wolves," he offered.
You're the one delusional. I will never go with you, Elsa yelled back.
I am going to rule the world, and you, my dear, are going to help me achieve that, he groaned in satisfaction.
I will never help you.
Elsa stood her ground despite her fear.
It's not a choice that you can make,
he said as he made a small cut over his shoulders and blood started oozing out of it. Elsa was in pain, but it was nothing she couldn't tolerate. She was not going to let this creature enjoy more than he was currently. She was afraid, but she was not a coward. The creature licked her wound and tasted her blood. He again sniffed her from proximity and growled. He was overjoyed, as if it was what he was looking for all this while.
I was right. It is you. Where are you? The creature asked.
You will never find me, and I will never be your tool, she snapped back.
I will find you no matter where you hide. This man is weaker than I thought. I have to leave, my dear, but I am coming for you,
the creature stated as he started fading. It was as if the man's body was no longer able to hold this strong creature anymore, and he started shaking more vigorously. Blood began to ooze out of his eyes, nose, and ears as he was pleading something between his gasps. For a brief moment, the creature again caught hold of the man.
Today you are in luck. This body is betraying me, but I promise you we will meet again soon.
The creature suddenly disappeared as the man dropped down. Elsa screamed at the top of her voice for help as the man writhed down and whimpered in pain. More blood oozed out of him. He was gasping for air, and the pain he was going through was evident. Noah, Kira, and a few other Opals rushed in as the man was fighting his last battle for his life. Not long after that, he dropped dead.
What happened, Beatrice? Kira called out loudly. I don't know. I don't know, Elsa cried. She was shivering in fear. Why didn't you all come before? She complained as tears escaped her eyes. She was really frightened. Her whole life was more complicated at that very moment. She wasn't sure where she could go and whom to trust. If that creature was after her, she was never safe anywhere. She couldn't believe her truth was darker than she ever thought. The creature said she was like him. Was she like that? Was she really what the Red Moon Pack thought of her? We didn't hear you earlier. Noah helped her stand as he comforted her. Right, the creature had warned her. Was he that powerful? How was she going to fight someone like that? Clear the body and take her to rest, Noah ordered. No, he swallowed something. We need to do an autopsy or something, Elsa protested. What do you mean? Kira gave her a strange look. He said he was a sire. He swallowed something and then he was not there. He turned into some kind of beast. I don't think he was a wolf at all. We need to find out more about him. Elsa tried to inform them as much as she could in her fragile state of mind. Fine. Secure the body. Beatrice, you need to rest. We'll discuss this in detail at a later time when you feel better. You're safe here. No need to be scared. We will protect you with our lives. Noah pacified her. He asked someone to take Beatrice to rest and the other Opals to take the body to the pack doctor. He looked around the room, and the broken chair and chains were silent evidence suggesting whatever Beatrice had said might possibly be true, no matter how awkward it sounded. Sire. Kira knowingly looked at Noah. She was not surprised like Elsa was when she heard that for the first time. It was as if she knew about them. Then it's one more reason we need her, Noah replied. Why do you think they reached out to her? Kira wondered. We need to find out, and soon. Noah replied in such calmness that it would appear like he was not affected, such as any other alpha wouldn't be. But in truth, the war was already resurfaced inside of him.
It was about time he took his revenge. Kira nodded her head as she walked out, leaving Noah alone to burn in his turmoils and fight his inner demons. Chapter 13. The Bond. Elsa was scared. She couldn't sleep properly. She kept tossing and turning for the entire night. Every time she fell asleep, she would have a dream. It wasn't oblivion anymore. It was replaced by a beast. The beast looked far scarier and dangerous. The dream was never the same. Sometimes it would appear right in front of her and scare the wits out of her, and other times it would haunt her in a scary forest. But every time it managed to get a hold of her. It wanted to reach out to her, invade her mind, and maybe her soul too. She could feel him corrupting her. But it just wasn't strong enough to do anything significant, yet. She knew whatever possessed the man was coming for her. It had tasted her blood, and that had created a bond somehow. She was unable to block the beast from invading her mind. She was terrified. She felt as if her privacy was breached, and if she was standing there naked. She begged Ayla to help her, but Ayla was too confused and overwhelmed. Ayla was tired of all the fights. She was too tired and too exhausted to help Elsa. What bothered Elsa most was that Ayla and she were no different at the end. If she was unable to block him from invading, she wondered if Ayla would be powerful enough. As the night progressed, she became more and more restless. Kira too had disappeared and never followed her back to the room. The emptiness of the room was beginning to squeeze the air inside of her. She needed to get out, but she was too afraid to lurk outside. She didn't need the beast haunting her for real this time, so she just kept pacing around the room and looking out the window, waiting for dawn. It was almost dawn, and she was eagerly waiting for the first light when she could see a big gray wolf returning from a run. She knew it had to be Noah. It was beautiful. It had gray grizzly fur and a not-so-perfect moon-shaped black spot in the middle of its forehead, as if it was blessed by the moon goddess herself. Noah's wolf somehow reminded her of the midnight black wolf of Raphael. She couldn't help but wonder what Raphael was up to. He would be thinking that she was dead like the others. She knew Raphael had betrayed her. The other girl, probably Davinia, was the one he was in love with. She was merely the other woman, brutally fated by the moon goddess and dumped on him. She was not going to be the reason for his conflict. But she couldn't bear to see Raphael with another lady. It was good that they separated like that. Here in the Opals she had a future, and also now she had a chance to discover who she really was. The beast had claimed she was like him, and despite her hopes that she was nothing like him, she wanted to find out more. As Noah's wolf came out of the tree line, it growled loudly. The growl was like a cry, as if to release pent-up frustration and helplessness. It was strong enough to break Elsa out of her trance. She again looked at the wolf. It was magnificent. She wondered why such a large wolf was living a life like this, like nomads. He was surely strong. He could have a permanent base and also do whatever it was he was doing with the Opals. She couldn't help but be curious. The mysteries around Noah were too tempting. She wanted to find out more about him. She felt like going down and joining him. Maybe ask him to go along with her for another run. She was in desperate need of some fresh air. But before she could act on her impulse, she saw Kira approaching Noah with some clothes. She wondered if Nora tore his clothes off and rushed for a run. The wolf took the clothes and went behind the tree line. After a short while, Noah emerged from the tree line looking like the perfect, handsome man that he was. Elsa blushed at the thought that she found Noah handsome, but it was a truth that nobody could deny. Her heart still belonged to Raphael for reasons she couldn't understand. But had there never been Raphael, she would have definitely hoped Noah to be her mate. Noah was a perfect gentleman who shared many of her ideologies. He was smart and noble, but she knew better. There was no way she could deny what she was still feeling for Raphael, and that he was what was causing her immense pain. But she had sworn that she would fight that and overcome it. A new life awaited her. She was not going to overlook it for someone who overlooked her. Noah and Kira sat and talked for a long time. Elsa was curious to find out more, but they were very far away, and no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't hear it. Being a werewolf heightens the senses, but her senses were far better than most of the alphas. Hell, she found herself superior to everyone she'd met until now. But still, she was unable to figure out anything they were discussing. They were too far away, and the wind coming from the forest was just making it harder. Elsa stomped her foot in frustration as she went to take a bath. Probably some hot water was going to relax her and help her get some sleep, but she wasn't certain about it. Elsa took her sweet time to bathe as the hot water started working miracles on her toned, slender body. Her muscles were sore, and the water was working as the perfect medicine until she could sense a presence inside the room. It was definitely not Kira. It was strong. She was scared for a second, wondering if the beast had found her. She screamed inside. "I'm sorry. I should never have come in like that. It won't happen again." She heard a voice apologizing to her from outside. Wait, is it Noah? Elsa knew that voice all too well. "Yes, and I'm leaving," Noah apologized again. He wasn't sure why he'd decided to walk in like that. The moment his wolf came out from the run, he could see Elsa looking at them. Under the moonlight, Beatrice/Elsa was looking rather breathtaking to him. He couldn't help but admire her. It was so rare for him. In fact, it had never happened to him before. So he needed to see her and brush it off. But now he realized it was a bad idea after all. He should have controlled his urges and not invaded her privacy like that. Being alpha does not give him that kind of excuse. No, wait. I'm almost done. Don't leave. Elsa was curious to talk to him. Maybe plead with him for that run, too. And she couldn't fathom the reason why Noah would enter her room like that. She needed to know. This man was far more complex than she had imagined. Okay, Noah said, feeling restless and cursing himself for acting so irrationally. But in that brief moment, he felt something so strong that he didn't believe he was capable to feel anything else. Noah waited patiently, and yet he wished that she would never come outside of that washroom. But not long after, she was standing there. Noah hadn't noticed previously, but this woman standing in front of him was way too beautiful to be real. She was unique with her flawless pale skin and freely flowing silver locks that reached her waistline. It kind of suited her complexion and those strange eyes she had, so silvery, like the moon itself. She could easily pass as the moon goddess herself. She was fearless and courageous on top of that. Elsa coughed a little bit to get his attention. She kind of blushed seeing Noah as looking at her as if she was some miracle. She had never been admired for the way she looked. Everyone just looked at her like she was a freak. She was bullied to such an extent that she had to cut her hair almost every day and color it black. Raphael had no idea how she really looked. Noah was mesmerized by the way she really was. But then who knew, he might be seeing her like that just because she was a weird-looking creature. He could be wondering if she was a freak. "I'm sorry again. I shouldn't have barged in like that," Noah apologized again. "It's okay, but next time I would use the door if I were you," Elsa smiled. "Noted," Noah said, relaxed to see her relaxing and not creating a fuss over it. "Can I ask why you're here?" Elsa was dying to know, and she could no longer hold her curiosity. "I saw you seeing me. I mean, us," Noah lied through his teeth. Honestly, a lot of other people saw them too. He was loud when he growled. He just happened to see her, and he wanted to meet her. He just wasn't sure exactly why. "Oh, Elsa blushed. She had been caught red-handed. She wanted to die in a glass of water if that was possible. But she couldn't let that get the best of her. She couldn't let this man have false hopes.
You were loud.
Elsa, too, lied through her teeth. Honestly, she'd seen him way before that, thanks to her powerful vision. I guess I have to apologize for that, too. But why were you not asleep? You should be sleeping. You're not fully well, and that thing that happened earlier should not have happened. Noah sounded concerned. He knew it was not the right time to talk about them, and yet he had to ask. If she wasn't asleep, then probably she was bothered. A good alpha should take care of his subjects.
I'm just a little bothered. I've never seen anything like that, honestly. I know it was a wolf, yet it was nothing like a wolf. He was like some cursed wolf or something. He looked more like a beast, a monster. I wonder how powerful he had to be to possess some other wolf's body.
Elsa wondered if she should say anything about the blood part and her dreams, but she chose not to talk about it yet. She didn't want others to link her with that creature. That was a man, Noah corrected Elsa. I wonder why he wanted to speak with you. Did he say anything at all? Noah again found himself questioning it.
He was there, and then the man got too weak to hold him. He said he was looking for me, though. And if he was only a man, are you telling me that thing can possess a man and transform his body? I wonder what kind of monster could do that.
Elsa knew she was in more trouble than she had assumed. This creature was far too powerful. A human body shouldn't be able to shift, and yet whatever thing he'd swallowed allowed him to make the transformation. He was sired by dark elemental magic. Thanks to you, we now know how. Whatever that was that he swallowed helped him in that process and the subsequent transformation. All we could find out was that he had traces of wolf's blood and silver. Noah informed her of everything that they'd found during the autopsy. The pack doctor couldn't help with anything more, but it was more than they'd known in the first place.
You seem to know a lot about these creatures. Are you telling me witches are involved, too?
Elsa wanted to know more. She couldn't hide her curiosity. My pack, they were destroyed by these creatures. They were looking for someone, but I don't know why they assumed they were hiding in our pack. They were terribly wrong, and it took away my parents' lives. I was too small to do anything about it. My mother died protecting me from one of those creatures, and I pledged that day to spend my life finishing them all off. They're pure evil, and yet, till today, I could never find one. I'm just curious what they wanted with you. They might be mistaken again, like when they'd killed off an entire clan. But this time, I will not let that happen, Beatrice. I will protect you, and in doing so, I will avenge my parents' death. Noah opened up to Elsa. It was only Kira who knew his truth. She was there that day. He had never thought he would be sharing it with another person, let alone someone he'd just met a few days ago properly. But by expressing himself to her, he found solace that he'd been looking for a long time. It was comforting in more ways than he wanted to accept.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have asked.
Elsa was truly sorry. Noah had been so kind to her. Had a tragic past, and that had impacted his life decisions and how he was. She silently pledged to be a warrior for his cause. I think you should get some rest. Tomorrow we'll induct you into the pack. Noah stood as he walked towards the window. No matter how comforting the feeling was with Elsa, he couldn't bear it. It was overwhelming.
Thank you.
Elsa thanked him for the innumerable things that Noah and the Opals had done for her. She felt as if she was betraying their trust. Now she had to decide if she was going to get inducted into their pack with a lie or with a truth. Noah simply nodded his head before leaping out the window, leaving a confused Elsa pondering over if she should open up and confess about her true identity. Chapter 14. Elsewhere in the Black Moon Pack. Elsewhere in the territory of the Black Moon Pack, Raphael suffered. Every night he tossed and turned as memories of Elsa falling over the edge of that cliff haunted him. Raphael could never forget her or the heart-wrenching pain he felt at watching her fall and knowing he couldn't help. He had become a living zombie. Long gone was the playboy who would screw every walking female. He was living a life of celibacy, lamenting for what he had done. If he could, he would go back and change everything about that night. He would be the one loving her to the fullest and accepting her as she was. He would be her knight in shining armor. But his life had other plans for him, and he lost everything in a fraction of a second because of his misjudgment. He found solace in Divinia and confided in her, but that was only limited to friendship. He was no more able to see her as a woman like he used to. The past year had strained their relationship and reduced them to just mere friends, and she wanted more of him every passing second. He was still the most ruthless and feared alpha, but he was dying inside in misery and pain. He'd become an unforgiving man of few words. All he wanted was to go back and get Elsa. His heart yearned for her, and his body ached for her touch. The pang of pain that he felt in his heart when the bond was fading as Elsa was drowning had managed to leave a permanent mark on him. He still suffers through that every night. He had suffered countless sleepless nights, only managing to fall asleep after his body was so tired he couldn't take it any longer. He had spent more time near the cliff pondering if he too should jump and end the misery that he was in. But he was an alpha with a commitment to his pack. He couldn't simply die and get his life over with. He believed he would serve an eternity of pain for betraying her. In one swift move he'd managed to not only reject her but break her trust that night, and for that he deserved to live in a life of living hell. But there was a narrow ray of hope. It was insignificant and possible, but he couldn't let go of it. Jera was stubborn that Elsa was alive. He would suggest that he could still feel her sometimes, no matter how little it was, and Raphael chose to trust it. It was comforting to believe that. No wolf would ever be able to survive that fall, but his heart hoped for it. The thing is that they hadn't marked each other, so they hadn't established that deep bond that mates share to sense each other and talk. They had only merely mated, and that created a strong bond, but not strong enough. With distance and time, it too started fading. The connection was weak. It should be impossible for any wolf to feel a connection given the time and distance Elsa had been separated from him, even if she was alive. But here they were, feeling her sometimes. It was all blank and void for a long time, and then suddenly, one day, they could feel as if she was there, like she was well and breathing. And then again it all went blank before they could feel sudden despair and agony. Jera was determined to believe that it wasn't what they were feeling, but what Elsa was. He believed that whenever Elsa felt anything too deeply, somehow they could feel it in their link. And then, one evening, he could feel fear and helplessness. Raphael had to believe Jera. There was no other suitable explanations for what he was feeling. He couldn't speak to anyone of this. Nobody would believe it. The mate bond itself is too rare to find. But deep in his heart, he knew that it was very different than what he had experienced with Elsa. The pull had been strong even when they had merely met each other. He was certain that there was more to Elsa than met the eye. She was certainly different. How he wished he could see her true form and embrace her. How he could comfort her, and that he would never leave her side and always fight for her. It didn't matter who she was. The only thing he cared for was that she was his mate, and he loved her beyond and more. While Raphael was deeply engrossed in his thoughts, as he felt anxious the whole night, someone knocked on his door. He couldn't fathom the reason why anyone would try to breach his sleep at such odd hours. No one was aware of how he was spending his night in this closed compartment he called a room. It wasn't yet dawn. But he was an alpha, and he had to respond. Raphael quickly opened the door to see Jander standing there.
I hope this is something serious for you to wake me like that.
Raphael spoke to Jander, who rolled his eyes. Jander knew how Raphael was living. He knew his friend was struggling with sleepless nights, and his eyes were wide awake to suggest anything other than that. But he didn't speak about it. He had tried so many times, but Raphael never opened up. So he let him be while trying to make his life a little easier as an alpha. He was a loyal beta. As they went into his office, he could see another wolf, who was not from his pack, waiting for them patiently. Davinia was standing right next to him, aiding his wounds and arranging for a meal. She was carrying an Luna material. Raphael had decided several months before that he was not going to look for another girl. Elsa was irreplaceable, and hence the Luna position could never belong to someone he marries. So he simply made Davinia the official Luna. It was the first in history where Luna was not the Alpha's marked or fated mate, but someone who had his choice and fulfilled all the requirements. Despite Davinia's potential, many members had raised their concerns initially, and several other packs were unwilling to accept her credibility. But they didn't have the courage or the means to go against Raphael. Hence, they ultimately had to accept his decision. Raphael never regretted his decision, not even once. Davinia never failed to impress him or make him proud, just like now.
What is it?
Raphael asked him.
Who are you?
Alpha Raphael. My name is Gary. I come from a small pack called the Rose Moon over the Eastern Territory across the river. We've been attacked by horrible creatures and rogue wolves. Our pack is destroyed. Only a few of us survived and ran for our lives. There are not enough boats and ferries, so we gave it to the little ones, and the adults had to swim. Not everyone was able to swim across, and a lot of us died by drowning. We are a handful of survivors and running for our lives. Our Alpha and Beta are dead. We've lost our family and loved ones. We have nowhere to go. We didn't intend to invade your territory, but we had no idea we were trespassing. Please, give us a place to live. Accept us. We have small kids and wounded wolves. The wolf broke down into tears as he went down on his knees. He looked pathetic. His clothes were tattered, and he had several wounds. Raphael wondered, if the wolf who was in the best possible condition was in this state, then what was the condition of the others? Whoever did this to them were demons and nothing less. It was not the first attack they'd heard of happening in the Eastern Territory beyond the river over the past year. Many small packs of the Eastern Territory had been overthrown overnight, and few of the refugees had made their way to the Moonlit City. The Black Moon Pack itself had received 3 such cases and accepted the remaining wolves into their pack. If they accepted the Rose Moon survivors, it would be their 4th one. Whatever was attacking the Eastern Territories was ruthless. The rogues had one agenda, to overthrow the packs. One thing they knew was that these rogue wolves were looking for someone, in particular for some female wolf, and they were going to any extent to get her. Raphael wondered how long the Moonlit City was safe. Once they were done with the Eastern Territory, they would be advancing towards the Moonlit City and its packs. The Moonlit City had its advantages and disadvantages. It was surrounded by a roaring gigantic sea on the southern side, and the Silveria River on the east side, which was making its way to the sea. The western side had a dense forest and rough terrain. It wasn't easy for invaders to surpass that easily. But the northern front was weak. It was not well defended, and there were no strong packs on the northern borders, past the last battle all those years ago. Raphael knew he had to talk to the other alphas of the Moonlit City packs. It was time for them to unite, or else they would all fall like last time. He would have to go beyond his ego and initiate the conversation. Otherwise, his beloved moonlit city and several of its packs would face the same fate as that of the Eastern Territory packs. Raphael instructed Jander to give the best possible treatment to the survivors and induct the members according to their ability and assign their rank. Once all the matters were settled and taken care of, Raphael quickly called for a meeting with the Gamma and Jander's wife, Liriana, along with Divinia and Jander. He announced his decision that every wolf, irrespective of their gender or their rank, had to train in self-defense. He was very particular that even the children should not be spared and taught as per their stamina and caliber. He was going to make sure that no Black Moon wolf would remain defenseless if ever an attack happened. Everyone, including the young and the old, should not be defenseless in case a war happens. His decisions were quickly accepted, and the Beta couple and Divinia quickly divided their tasks and the plan. Several worthy warriors were recognized and quickly summoned, and no sooner every member of the Black Moon Pack was put into some group, and their training was arranged. Black Moon Pack had one of the largest territories in the Moonlit City, and this gave them ample space to create big and equipped training grounds. Now they were going to be put to their best use. Once everyone was settled and called for, it was already morning. Raphael was tired, and he knew his body needed sleep, but he could feel an anxiety that he knew didn't belong to him, despite the situation at the Black Moon Pack. He wasn't sure anymore if he was imagining those things or if they were real, but he somehow had settled for the idea that Elsa was alive and well somewhere, and all these weird, erratic feelings belonged to her. Through these strong and random emotions, he felt connected to her. He knew she was restless and indecisive at the moment. It was something he was going through too. As he took his shower and lay down on his bed, he wondered what Elsa was going through to feel so restless. He contemplated if he could do some magic and go near her. He wished to give her all the happiness and take away her misery and problems, but only if he could. He had a chance, and he hadn't lost it in a snap. He tossed and turned several times before he finally fell into a deep slumber, and, like all other times that he was sleeping, he dreamt of a parallel universe where Elsa was with him and his Luna beside him. This Elsa was not with amber hair, but free-flowing silver locks that went below her waistline. It perfectly suited her deep silver glowing eyes. His body relaxed and his heart warmed up as he saw her smiling in the dream.